Hi, and welcome to Total Recall. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli. You can check out my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Tom Scioli to see the comics I'm working on. And you can follow me on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
You can follow me on Instagram at cinema_tune.
And so we just saw like the big Marvel movie. Yeah, Shang-Chi. And so like when you came into it cold, like did you
Cold.
have you didn't know anything about anything?
I came in double cold.
Double.
I was unfamiliar with Shang-Chi, and I didn't really know anything about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I was about as green. I was a greenhorn in many ways.
Like I've read a lot of Shang-Chi comics, but like I'm still coming in cold too because like the Shang-Chi comics that I've read are like from the 70s. And you know, just like kind of super different. Like I could kind of see like similar threads coming in, but pretty different from this. And I mean, I've read some more recent comics over the years where like Shang-Chi maybe makes an appearance here and there, but I don't think I've like read like a full on like, you know, Shang-Chi series or Shang-Chi comic other than those like ones from the 70s, and like I think it gets into the early 80s a little bit too.
Dude, please, I gotta borrow some
Yeah,
from
sure.
your stash.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, I love those comics. Like, those comics are so great. They're so wonderful. But, like, and there's a lot of comics like this where, like, the comic is, like, so much cooler than, like, the, like, general, like, idea or the story. Like, I couldn't really tell you very much about, like, what happens in, like, the Shang-Chi series, even though I've read a ton of them, because it's like one of those comics where you're just kind of like dazzled by like the technique, the art, like the writing, but not so much the storytelling, because it stands out. Like the comics stand out. They're just like they're super 70s. It's
Now we're cooking.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're cooking gas.
And they're very grindhouse. Like there's
God.
a lot of like leather and spandex and like a lot of like exposed skin and zippers. The cool thing, like the comic was like started by Jim Starlin and somebody else whose name escapes me, but like they did the first couple, and it's, you know, it's like one kind of comic, but then like Doug Munch and Paul Gulacy Doug Munch is the writer, and then Paul Gulacy comes in as like the artist and co-writer, and that's kind of like I like the Starlin stuff, but the Gulacy stuff is like the prime stuff. It's like he's doing, you know, this like super like pop art kind of like approach, and it's like more violent as it goes on. And then like an artist named Gene Day takes over at a certain point after Gulacy's done, but like a little bit into Gulacy's run, it really like just becomes like the adventures of Bruce Lee. Like he starts drawing, like Shang-Chi starts looking like less and less like, you know, the character that Jim Starlin designed visually,
Yeah.
and starts just becoming like, you know, I don't know if like the photo reference started increasing or whatever, but it's like he becomes Bruce Lee, and so it's just like so much fun seeing like Bruce Lee in like a 70s Marvel comic drawn by Paul Gulacy. Like that's the whole appeal. So it's like,
God.
how do you like, if you were gonna make a movie out of that, like how do you make a movie out of that? Like maybe you hire the guy who played Bruce Lee in, you know, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah,
or
Mike Moe.
But like, you know, so like.
You get Jason Scott Lee from Dragon the Bruce Lee story.
Yeah. Like I don't know, you know, and then I don't know, like it's one thing to like make like the adventures of Bruce Lee in like a 70s Marvel comic. It's another thing in like, you know, 2021 to like, you know, in a Marvel movie to so it became like its own thing, which I'm sure is like hues closer to whatever like the most recent, you know, comics were. But
dude, in the flick, we got Bruce Lee worship, and we got some Jackie Chan worship in there. Like a lot of like action. It was action extravaganza.
Yeah, I guess you're talking about like the bus scene, like
Oh yeah,
like the bus scene was the one. It kind of had some sort of like Jackie Chan, kind of like I don't know, homages or something.
A lot of with his like going in and out of his jacket multiple times, and like
and going in and out of the window and stuff, and like doing like he would do these little runs.
Oh yeah,
where like run that kind of was, it reminded me, and like comedic, like
yeah,
like I think above all, it felt like like the movie felt like a comedy, and some Marvel movies are more that, like some are more dramatic, some are like, they all have a comedic element to them, but some are more like dramatic, some are more comedic, and this one sort of aired on the side of comedy.
Yeah, the one of the leads too, it was comedian Awkwafina was one of the leads. She did a great job.
Yeah, that relationship between Shang-Chi and Awkwafina was like that was my favorite part of it, and it's like and like the strength of it, just sort of like the chemistry between those two, the as far as I know, the non-sexual chemistry between them, because it's like his grandmother is like, when are you two getting married? And he's like, come on, it's not that kind of thing. Great actor, and she's like, she's in another movie, was from a couple years ago, where she was like, her like mom was dying or something, or grandmother died. I can't remember, but it looked dramatic. So looks like she can do everything. Yeah, she was the voice of the Last Dragon in Raya and the Last Dragon.
I haven't seen that yet.
I really enjoyed their relationship, and like I really enjoyed the first half of the movie. Like I love that bus scene. I love the fights. I love that little glimpse of this sort of like superhero. Underground fight circuit kind of like fighting for cash kind of thing. I liked that. That aspect. Like the first half is like very fast and glitzy and stuff, and then the second half is where it like kind of like it's starts referencing like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yes,
and it has a lot of like a long time ago, far away, kind of like poetic, kind of wispy.
Their training combat scenes felt like you're right. Crouching Tiger, a lot of wire work, and moving around.
Shang-Chi's aunt is played by like the actress from Crouching Tiger, so like they're obviously going for it. I liked the movie all the way through, but like I so far preferred that first half, and then the second half when we kind of go into like Fantasyland, I wasn't as engaged, and I think a big part of that was that like the team of Shang-Chi and Awkwafina gets like split up in that second. She kind of goes off and she like learns to have a purpose and stuff, and it's like good for a character arc and all this kind of stuff. Like I understand, and then she can have her like little moment where she like is like useful in the fight. But it's like you want to see those two together. They're like a comedy team.
Yeah, you're right. When they split up and went on their own, I was like, I want to see them in more scenes together.
Yeah, it's like when they split up the crew in Empire Strikes Back, and wasn't that like the worst Star Wars movie, Empire Strikes Back, because they split it. It's like we want to see Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia together. They split them up, and then we want to see R2-D2 and C-3PO together. They split them up.
In the first half, they have that action scene in the building on that like on the scaffolding. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was cool and fun. Again, it's like this movie really made me want to watch like a Jackie Chan movie, because it's like you'd have that bus scene but with no CGI.
Yes.
And again, the bus scene, the way this CGI and like the real stuff is integrated is like pretty good. But then that scene where they're like outside the building, it was a lot of fun. It was awesome. But you're just kind of picturing like the Jackie Chan version with no CGI.
Yeah.
It was very video game like, which is just, I mean, that's just where we're at. Like you got to kind of make peace with that in these action movies. You're going to see some like video game action, and that was like another thing about like the second half that I didn't like as much. Like that stuff with the dragon and the little H.P. Lovecraft demons and stuff. That stuff was pretty cool and fun. But again, it's like the CGI. It's not as engaging as just like people
fighting.
Yeah, people fighting. But then also just like just normal drama and like the sort of like, so like you got the comedy and whatever, Shang-Chi and Awkwafina, but then you also kind of have like I liked the drama, the brother and sister drama, the sort of like separated siblings drama of like Shang-Chi and his sister, but like that kind of got dismantled a little bit.
They kind of like left. It felt like they just forgot it.
Yeah, and saving it for the sequel or something. As we've seen in so many movies that like never get a sequel. But I mean, it seems like this was a hit.
Yeah,
and it kind of like, it's kind of like Scarlett Johansson took the hit. Like somebody has to be the first, the first,
penguin.
the canary in the coal mine or whatever. And so now it's like, okay, so now, and I'm sure, and then by the time the Eternals comes out or whatever, like it'll be like a well-oiled machine again.
Dude, I forgot. We get the Eternals coming up soon. I gotta read.
And I think there was like maybe a tease for, or maybe not. Like,
oh yeah,
there were like a couple teasers at the end. They're very, like when we were buying our tickets to go in, the person working at the counter was like, "Who's your favorite Marvel character?" And I'm like, "I don't know, the Hulk."
Oh,
and
good choice, Tom. That's a great choice.
And then she was like, "Yeah, stick around past the credits. Stick around past the credits, you'll get a nice surprise." I was like, I was like excited that I was going to see the Hulk, but I was also kind of like, I could have done without that information, But then, and then when like the post credits thing comes up, and it's, you said I was going to be pleased. This was Bruce Banner. I didn't see any Hulk. I saw Bruce Banner. So they had like, there's, of course, some post-credits. The rare times where there's one of these movies and there's not post-credit stuff, like people are all mad. Like
when there's no, it's like, it's like, stay around for the stinger.
Yeah.
After the show, and Sting comes out.
There were two stingers. Neither one of them featured Sting. Spoiler. But
that'd be sick.
Yeah, like Sting.
A stinger.
Or if Sting shows up in the theater, like he makes like little guest appearances at various theaters, and he goes to like as many as possible. So there's actually like a pretty good chance you might see Sting. So there's like a 1 in 9 chance when you go to the movies you're going to see Sting in person.
The ticket-taking person said, "Stick around after the movie for a stinger," and then like we're there, and then Sting comes down from the rafters. I'm like, this is better than I ever imagined.
Or it's like one of those like stinkorama kind of things where like it's sting around, like there's like little stinger in the seat that like pokes you.
Or I'm like, oh no, like gas, like green gas comes in. I'm like, I misheard her. She said, "Stick around after the show for a stinker."
For a stinkor. Too much.
Ben Kingsley as the
Ben Kingsley, returns as the Mandarin, which was a nice little surprise. Like again, like I kind of like forget, okay, which Marvel movies are canon and which are part of the thing and which aren't. And it's like, oh yeah, because Iron Man 3 it kind of gets like lost in the shuffle. But yeah, okay, there he is as the actor who played the Mandarin.
He was like laying prone for the second half of the movie, trying not to get killed by those things. And then Shang-Chi's dad, they were like, "Will somebody get this schmuck away from the gate?"
Well, that was like, I liked the way they found, like I liked like him trying to find this like this sort of like Brigadoon that his like Shang-Chi's dad thought that Shang-Chi's mother was like still at this like sort of Brigadoon. I like the way he found it, but
the ring, like the
and the rings. The rings were like that was a cool gimmick, and like it's kind of fun that it's like one of those things like Spider-Man's webs or whatever. Mm-hmm. You kind of like imagine yourself having them, and I could totally see it play out in a video game or something, because it's like straight out of like a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up kind of thing, where it would like these rings are like they fly around your ship and then you shoot and then they like follow and do like a bunch of damage,
like a slinky kind of thing.
And they're kind of like a shield around your ship and you kind of send them out.
Yeah, there was like kind of like a kaiju battle at the end too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that was a lot of fun. But like here's like you said, you went in pretty cold. I went in relatively cold, but like you got to see or you got to either like stay off social media or see these movies fast, because it's like just kind of like being on social media a little bit. I see like and I'm not looking for any of this stuff, but people are like you'll see a thing pop up of like, oh a lot of Jackie Chan references in Shang-Chi. So I'm like, okay, I guess. So then when it's happening, I'm like, okay, there's this. It's not as much like I don't have the sort of like joy of discovery that I would have had, like just so it's like, okay, there's that. And then it's like, oh, Shang-Chi, oh, it's like a, half kung fu movie, half kaiju movie. And so that sounds like, okay, I guess there's going to be some like giant monster at the end, and then there is. So it's like it kind of like you got to have that thrill of discovery of just kind of seeing where like people on Twitter, hey, I'm not going to spoil anything, but hey, it's half kaiju, like so it kind of
Well, you know what? After going into this movie ice cold, I should go into more movies like this.
Oh, sure.
You have a great, because normally I go in pretty hot. I'm like, all right, who's in this movie? I gotta check the cast out. And I mean, I'm not looking for like nuggets from the movie. I'm just like, check the cast out and stuff.
Yeah, so this was like, because of those like couple of things that I saw on social media where like people just couldn't help themselves, you know, just sort of saying like, hey, no spoilers here, but you know, like it was enough to kind of, so it kind of put a damper. Like I found myself like out of like the whole batch of like recent Marvel movies, like I didn't really like enjoy this one quite as much. Like I still enjoyed it, still like I think it's worth seeing and stuff. You know, think of like I really enjoyed the first half a lot. You know, like I enjoyed, like I'm trying to compare it to like Black Widow, which is like the most recent one I saw, and like I
this one better.
Did you? Okay, like I enjoyed Black Widow all the way through, and then this one I enjoyed like the first half so much more. But just thinking back, I think overall, Shang-Chi might win by just like a little bit, but it wasn't like, you know, it was a little like more like uneven. Which again, like they're trying a bunch of things, and I appreciate that. And like if you told me like, okay, we're making a movie, and there's gonna be all this like, you know, kung fu action in the first half, and then the second half is going to be this fantasy thing, and then there's going to be a giant dragon, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, that sounds like a winner to, you know, so, you know, it worked. One note, like, you know, they got all these little cameos, and like, you know, all the cameos are kind of unexpected, like especially the Mandarin, like Ben Kingsley, that was pretty unexpected, but they have a cameo by the Abomination, like the great Hulk villain, the Abomination, and I was like so excited to see the Abomination. But then I was also kind of like they use him as a jobber in it. They use him as just a
some
way
enhancement talent
to like build up somebody else, and you know, at the expense of the Abomination. I was kind of like, oh, man, I was kind of bummed because like I want the Abomination to get the big build up and be the big, you know, guy that somebody has to fight. And
you should have known that when the Abomination came out with blue trunks and blue elbow pads and knee pads.
when the Abomination
and he just comes running down the aisle.
When the Abomination like turns towards the camera and says, "Oh, you're not smart enough to watch me."
He cuts a Rick Rude promo. He calls everyone in the building SummerSlam sweat on.
You know, all you in your small town, your nothing towns, while I'm out here in Hollywood.
Yeah, if you want to see my diplomas, he's got him in like a briefcase.
Yeah, like he was
really getting some heat, like
yeah, like he went down fast. Like, you know, I as excited as I was to see the Abomination, he got you know, dismissed rather quickly.
He was like, "Pin me, pay me."
Yeah, yeah.
The Job Squad.
So yeah, like just a lot of things sort of thrown out there in the movie that I like that, and then when that stuff goes away, you know, it's kind of like, I like that other. Let's see what's going on over there, and like I'm trying to like connect the dots between like the comic and the movie, like how you get there, and it's like the comic was like whenever you would read one of those 70s ones, it would be like based on characters and you know, characters, supporting characters, and blah 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 from the works of Sax Rohmer, and it's like it began as like a Dr. Fu Manchu spin-off. So like Sax Rohmer's Fu Manchu stories, it's like they Marvel licensed that. But then they sort of had him as this like great villain, and then they came up with this idea of having the hero be his son. So Shang-Chi is Fu Manchu's son, like in the old 70s comics, and at a certain point, you know, Marvel stopped. You know, they ended the relationship with like the Sax Rohmer estate, and so like that element was taken out. But you know, somehow like Shang-Chi, like they were still, you know, I guess like Marvel was able to maintain ownership. They just can't refer to him being like being Fu Manchu's son anymore. But so like that was kind of the setup in there, and it is kind of fun in the comic because he meets a guy who's like supposed to be like Sherlock Holmes' son. Like they never directly reference it, but it's kind of like a Sherlock Holmes character. And then there's a guy who's drawn to look exactly like Sean Connery, and he's like a James Bond. They never like directly refer to him as James Bond, but he's kind of like a James Bond.
He shows up wearing a Zardoz like mankini.
There are a lot of like Zardoz mankinis in like that's what I'm talking about of like the 70s.
Yeah.
There's a lot of skin in the Shang-Chi. It's called like the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu is what you know, and then Master. I think it's called like Master of Kung Fu or like Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. That's what the Shang-Chi comic is called. Like initially, and yeah, it's a lot of skin, and there's that character, like the big standout character in the movie is Razor Fist.
Oh yeah, that was
so
cool.
Yeah, he's
that
got
was
one
awesome.
hand that's like a blade, and I got good news for you. In the comic, Razor Fist has two blades.
What? That's great.
He doesn't have any. He has two blades for hands, and yeah, it's like again, like I said, like I can't remember too much about any kind of like stories, what the stories were about of the old Shang-Chi comics. Like they really are, like they're ephemera. They're just like, you're just having so much fun in the moment, and then it just like evaporates from your mind. But like the one thing I do remember is like, oh yeah, that guy with like two blades. So it's like, if you're making a movie, you got to have him show up.
So memorable, and like.
And they have some place to go. I guess they're saving it for the sequel to see how we get
Save
the
it
other
for the
blade.
sequel.
Yeah.
Dude, I had a great time watching that in the theater. It was
yeah,
awesome.
It was fun.
He's Sean Connery's in his Zardos. How about he's like in the comic, but he turns around, he's like, "Pardon me, I forgot to wax."
Shang-Chi in the comic is kind of modeled on Bruce Lee. He's like Bruce Lee with like longer hair and a bandana. So it's like Bruce Lee with a little bit of Billy Jack.
Oh my god!
But like so like I guess from like the photo reference they're using, Shang-Chi is very like oiled up.
Oh yeah, you gotta oil before you fight.
Yeah, it's very like Arnold would and Lou would be proud. It's fun seeing being
I like seeing movies.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly. Like just going to the movie
theater
theater is like, oh, this is so great.
It's great.
And yeah, like
I was taking notes. I'm like, Shang-Chi, man, this thing's like.
And it's also like it's fun seeing these movies with you, especially because it's like I got my perspective from like the comics, and so it's kind of cool seeing it with somebody who's like, maybe knows a little bit of the comics or doesn't know any of the comics, or for these movies, and kind of can just.
It was great because now I want to read some, and then I can't wait to read your copy of the Eternals that you have the bad vibes sealed up in there, stapled shut.
Yeah, thinking about that was all kind of like pre-social media when I did that, and when those things were written, and it's like, man, it's like a portent of things to come. All this don't read the comments with those like Eternals. The Shang-Chi, I pulled out, just like the other day, like after seeing the movie and stuff, I went through my boxes. Like my stuff's not very organized, so I went through like my comics boxes and just grabbed, and I found I had a bunch of the Shang-Chi's online, so I grabbed like a big stack, and I felt like I had enough of a stack. I didn't feel like going through everything to find the remaining, ones. But I read what was in that stack, and it was so much fun. And again, and I speed read some of it too, because it's it's just kind of fun. And the fights are laid out really amazingly, and the scenery and the spectacle. I can't say enough about the Paul Galassi art. The Paul Galassi art is the thing that sells it, and then later the Gene Day art. It's like a comic that's very art led. It's okay, if you want to do, Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, you got to bring your art game, and it's kind of the sort of Paul Galassi. It's young. Oh, and Paul Galassi went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh.
Oh,
so
wow.
He's kind of local or whatever,
cool.
or came through local. But it's early in his career. So it's got tremendous technical ability, but then also kind of a little bit of the rough edge of a young talent, which I really like. I like that rough edge.
Yeah.
And so later on, his work gets a lot more accomplished, a lot more the technique improves, and he kind of becomes his own thing. It's the early stuff's a little bit derivative, but it's derivative of a lot of really fun stuff, so it's kind of a sweet spot for me. I like his later stuff too, and his later stuff has its own virtues, but I really love that early
That's
stuff.
Sick.
So I
can't wait to read some of that.
Yeah, I think you'll like it, for all kinds of reasons. But yeah, so yeah.
Shang-Chi, another great time in the Marvel movie.
Great time at the movies. Marvel, they're just that Marvel train keeps running. We're a couple decades into this Marvel train, and no signs of stopping. People have been, myself included, have been predicting its demise for a lot of years, and it just keeps going. Maybe it'll just keep going and going, or maybe it's about to go off the
tracks.
Go ahead and go totally into the garbage. But I can't. I can't really see that happening. Like I feel like it's almost like to me superheroes, like the superhero genre is almost like this virus, and it's like this virus that took over the comics medium because there were all kinds of different stories being told in comic books.
Yeah.
But then like the superhero kind of took root, with like Superman, and then it proliferated and took over and kind of squeezed the life out of everything else for like a really long time, and then other stuff started coming in and kind of building a little but like the superheroes like really did dominate and push everything else out, and so now like that virus was just kind of like contained within comics for a long time, and now it's like made
out.
It's gotten out, it's made it into like the larger cinema, and so it's taken over. So I think it might I think we might have a few more decades to go at least. We'll see you at the movies, at the Marvel movies, or we won't see you.
I forgot my Gene Shalit wig.
Yeah, I got my Roger Ebert glasses on.
The Gene Siskel.
I'm wearing I got the Saturday Night Fever leisure suit hanging up over here from Gene Siskel.
Gene Shalit.
Gene Siskel.
I got the
who was the other? Rex Reed, and there was the other guy, Michael Medved.
Oh man,
Michael Medved, Rex Reed, and then there's the guy who's been doing the Roger Ebert thing probably like longer than Roger Ebert ever did, but like I keep forgetting who he is. Like there's that guy he's been doing it for like maybe 30 years or something.
Oh my god.
That like Roger Ebert was like sort of like a journalist and stuff, and then Gene Siskel was like, hey, I like movies.
Yeah.
and I'm kind of I'm sassy. I like movies, and I like getting in arguments. And like I mean I always I love the chemistry.
What a great show.
Too, yeah.
Like I would watch so much Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah,
it'd be on like 11:30 or midnight, and I'd watch like back-to-back episodes.
When you'd see them on like Howard Stern or something,
oh my
and
god,
like you knew they genuinely hated each other, which was the beauty of it.